Hey, beautiful people, welcome back to my channel. I guess you can call it a podcast. And today we're going to be doing something different. I haven't done the Shy before, but I guess I am going to start because I've been looking for different shows to do. And I'm going to go ahead and do the Shy. This is the latest one, you guys. The Spook That Sat by the Door, Season 4, Episode 5. So if you have not watched it yet, because I'm a little early with it, then you want to watch it and come back because it is a recap. So I will be talking about everything that happened. So let's get started. So we open up with the mayor walking through the kitchen at the banquet hall where he's going to give this big speech and have this big party tonight. And he's walking like he's the man, which I guess he is in Chicago, according to the Shy. But he makes it to the banquet hall, and all you can hear is Gemma's dad being a jerk. Like, he's yelling at everybody, do this, do that. He then tells Tracy that she needs to rehearse her speech. And she's like, again? He's like, yeah, again. So Duda comes, and he's like, no, you don't have to do it again. So Gemma's dad, sorry, I don't remember his name. But he gives this speech about why Chicago really needs this win and we really need the Olympics here, yada, yada. And at the end of his speech, someone's like, South Side? And then somebody else says, West Side? And then a guy's like, get the fuck out of here with that. And I'm going to have to agree with that. Like, South Side? You guys, if you're not from Chicago, it's a thing. It really is. South Side versus West Side. It really is a thing. So Duda walks up to Tracy and he's like, yeah, I like your hair, because she has on a different wig. And she's like, yeah, you look good too. And then she gets right to the business. And she's like, listen, have you heard about the trap house where the girl was killed? And he's like, nah, I don't know nothing about it. She could tell he's lying. So she's like, but I bet you know somebody who does. And he makes a comment about gangbangers or whatever, and she's like, so you're in bed with gangbangers? And he's like, listen, I never said I was a saint. And he's like, and I can't do anything about my past. He's like, so you can either get with it or you can get the fuck on. And I was like, yo. And her face did not look shocked enough for me, because you're not gonna tell me that. Dude, you're just not going to tell me that. And I'm going to stand there with a shocked face. And it took a minute for her, I guess, maybe to grasp what he said. But she was just like, she gave him a face and he walked off. Then we cut to Kevin. He's at home and he's texting Gemma. And he's like, I got my tux. And she's like, good for you, pretty much. Like, she's kind of playing him off. He's like, yeah, you don't want to see a picture so that we can kind of coordinate? She's like, nah, I'm good. He's like, why don't you care about my tux? And she's like, listen, it's not that big of a deal, okay? So he's like, so he calls her. And she answers the phone, and he's like, yeah, do you want me to come over? And she's like, nah, because I'm not trying to, deal with my dad and the back and forth. And he's here and all that. So Kevin's like, yeah, okay. Because he knows it's BS. Like any other time, she would be with it, and she could care less about her dad being home, which she wasn't even at home, so she was lying. So then when they show her get off the phone, she's with Jake. So they got her looking like she's about to be in the Blood Billiken parade. I'm sorry. If you know, it's actually a Chicago parade that they have every year before back to school. It's a tradition, and the ladies, the majorettes and everything, and the white boots and stuff, and that is how they had Gemma dressed. She looked cute, I guess. I mean, Gemma's not my favorite because she's just a little asshole. She really is. Like her dad, I guess. So Jake tells Gemma, listen, you need to just go ahead and tell Kevin what's going on. And she's like, yeah, I am, just not now. He's like, well, how are you going to be an activist and all that, and you're scared to tell Kevin that we're together? And she's like, it's totally different. He's like, okay, well, I know what we doing is foul, but that's still my brother. And I'm like, really, Jake? Really? Because, you guys, Jake has been a jerk pretty much and kind of a frenemy to Kevin since season 1. Like, there's always been something wrong with Jake to me, in my opinion. Jake just ain't shit. I'm sorry. But, so he tells her, if you don't tell, I'll tell. And she's like, you ain't gonna do shit. And he walks off on her. And then she's looking all crazy. Then we cut to Emmett's mom and Dre sitting at his restaurant having a little food or whatever, and she's telling her, listen, I need you to call my wife and let her know that I've been with you and I haven't been out there, because she's starting to stress, and she's starting to stress me out. Emmett mom is like, man, just give me a little bit longer to, bask in the fact that everybody doesn't know and people aren't really pitying me yet. She's like, fine. So Emmett comes out, he brings her some healthy food. He's like, look, if you, from what I heard, if you eat healthy, you'll live longer. And she's like, get away from me. And he's like, why? And I'm just like, they just do Emmett so wrong, especially his mom. I have never liked the way she spoke to Emmett. Like, I know that's your son and you love him and you try to give him tough love, but her attitude is just, but then again, her attitude is just stank with everybody in actuality. So he asked to make her dinner the following night, and she's like, why? He's like, because I want to. And she's like, I'm busy. And I'm like, bitch. And he's like, please. And she says, okay. So Dre makes it home, and Nita's there. She's getting the pool and everything ready for Keisha's home birth. Whenever that happens, they just want to be ready. Dre tells her she's coming from the gym, and they do a little back and forth about, why she didn't tell. So of course she's just lying again, pretty much. And she tells her, well, let's just get in the shower together. So they get in the shower. When they get out the shower, they're in the bedroom, and Dre's on her phone. And she's like, well, who you talking to? Nothing, it's just some work stuff. So again, she's being, suspicious of what's going on with Dre. So now we're at Trig's house, and Imani is asking Rashad about his interview. Are you ready for your interview? Because he's in the mirror getting ready, got his little button down going on, and she's like, well, you need a tie. And he's looking at her like he's really, really disgusted with her. And she brings the tie out to him, and he's like, I don't know how to tie this. So she's about to put it around his neck, and he's like, hey, watch out. And she's like, fuck you, nigga. Because basically she figured out that, okay, he knows. So after that, she ends up talking to Trig, and she's like, listen, he gotta go. I'm not gonna tell you again that he has to go. And he's like, yeah, I know, but what happened? And she's like, listen, he clocked me. I don't know how, whatever, but he clocked me, and he's disgusted by it, and I'll be damned if he's gonna sit up in my house and eat my food and live under my roof and treat me like shit. He has to go. And Trig is like, yeah, I know, I'm gonna make it happen. And she's like, I'm not the one to play with. And he's like, yeah, I know. And she's like, act like it, nigga. And I'm like, why does he allow her to punk him every single time? I mean, I understand love and all that, but she just talks to him kind of crazy. Then we cut to Keisha. She's looking at her old baby book. Her mom comes up and she's like, oh, yeah, I haven't seen this book in forever. And Keisha's like, yeah, I'm not going to get one of these, am I? And she's like, well, not with this one, but, eventually you will. And she's like, when? She's like, when you decide you want one. So now we're seeing that Keisha is getting a little emotional about the baby and perhaps giving up the baby. Yeah. So then we cut to Emmett's mom's house, and her boyfriend is making pancakes. So Emmett comes in and he's like, ugh, type of man making pancakes. And I'm like, Emmett, men make pancakes. Now that's just dumb. Men make pancakes. And so the guy's like, what's his name, Sway? He's like, you youngsters or whatever. And Emmett is like, dude, you're only 2 years older than me. So the guy leaves. He's like, all right, I'm out of here. Emmett's like, bye, nigga. I'm like, oh my God, Emmett is so stupid. So he tells his mom that he bought her a juicer and he wants her to eat healthy or whatever. They have this, back and forth. He doesn't want to lose her and everything. And he's like, let's pray. And she's like, well, since when did you start praying? That fool says, I pray every time I have sex. I pray that Tiff don't get pregnant. His mom starts laughing. She says, come on and eat. And he's like, I'm not eating none of that food. I don't know why. Well, I do know why he can't stand the guy. The guy is only 2 years older than him, sleeping with his mom. So I get it, Emmett. But his food didn't do nothing to you. She's like, just take a bite. So I guess he eventually takes a bite. Then we cut to Keisha at work, and she is talking to a new employee, cute little guy, and apparently they're doing a little bit of flirting, and she's having Braxton Hicks or whatever, or what she thinks is Braxton Hicks. She's like having these labor pains. He's like, you okay? She's like, yeah, Braxton Hicks. So later on they end up showing them, and again, they're doing this flirty thing, and she's kind of hinting at what happened to her, and he's like, I know. Yeah, I know what happened. It was all over the news everywhere. I know. And he's like, I'm glad you're okay. And then she gives this little smile. So it was cute. Then we have Rashad at the interview, and he he gives the man his resume, and the man looks at it. So I'm like, is he lying on there or what? And then he says, okay, man, I know it looks crazy that my last job was at Radio Shack. Radio Shack, y'all, which hasn't been around forever. He's like Radio Shack in '02, but I got locked up for some shit, some shit I ain't even do. And then the guy was looking like, yeah, okay. So basically, they did a little back and forth. I just needed, a chance. I'm a convict, but it's okay. I'm trying to get my life together. He ends up getting mad because then the guy's like, yeah, I got to talk to my bosses. And pretty much he knows that's not true. I feel like this guy could have made the decision, and he was just kind of sending him off. I got to talk to my bosses about it or whatever. So he gets pissed off, Rashad, and he's slamming doors and he's cussing, and Trig's like, what happened? Yeah, these niggas don't want to give nobody a chance. Yada, yada. We got to go have a drink. So they end up going to have a cocktail, and Trig tells him, you got to go. You got to go. And he's like, well, first of all, Rashad made comments like he took the rap for Trig, and Trig was like, nah, man, I was just driving the getaway car. And he's like, yeah, but I still didn't trick on you. So he already thinks that Trig owes him. So Trig tells him, listen, Rashad, you gotta go. And he's like, what you mean? And he's like, yeah, Imani pretty much wants you out. And he's like, what you mean? She's calling shots or whatever? And he's like, well, yeah, she's the woman of the house. And he's like, that ain't no woman. And he's like, listen, man, you gotta go, pretty much. And he's like, oh, so you just gonna choose that thing over me? And he's like, pretty much, she comes before you. And he's like, oh, well then, fuck you then. And that's how they leave that one. So, you guys, I really feel like Rashad is gonna do something to Imani. And I hope it's not too bad. Like, I hope he don't end up killing her or whatever. I mean, we know what can happen to transgenders. And I don't know. I'm just hoping that Lena doesn't take it that far. I know he's going to end up doing something to her, but I hope he doesn't take it, or Lena doesn't take it that far. They show the boys getting ready for the party, and they both look really nice. Jake and Kevin look very nice. They make it to the party, and Duda comes and tells them, along with some other kids, that they've been chosen as youth ambassadors. So go ahead and make me proud. Go, talk and smooth the people, and, be smart and make me proud. And he's like, oh, and don't eat all the refreshments. And then he's like, ha ha ha, I'm just kidding. Eat all you want. And in that moment, I realized Duda he doesn't have a wide range in terms of his acting. He can play mean really well, but that little scene didn't come off. It came off kind of cringeworthy because I'm like, he didn't come off as endearing as I think they wanted him to. So when he tells them to go ahead and go and disperse, Gemma and Jake walk away from Kevin. They just walk away from him, and he's peeping all this now. So he's seeing that they're walking away. So they end up going in the banquet hall, and they're talking to people and everything. And then Kevin goes over to Gemma, and Jake walks away. So Jake walks over to this girl, and he's talking to this girl. So while Kevin is talking to Gemma, he notices that Gemma can't take her eyes off Jake talking to this girl, and she's looking super jealous. So Gemma walks away from Kevin again, and she goes to Jake, and she's like, I know what you're trying to do. And he's like, what? You're trying to make me jealous. And he's like, is it working? And she's like, yeah. I'm like, what is going on with these kids? So we cut to over to Kevin's house, where Keisha is in full labor. She's in the pool, she's in labor and everything, and the lady who she has that's going to be the adoptive parent is there, and she's like, let's go over intentions. And so she's reading these intentions out loud, and it's just kind of a chaotic scene, but she's about to give birth. So back at the party, we have Duda dancing with Candy, his wife, and she's telling him, listen, you need to give me some sort of stability at work. Let me know that my job is safe and I have job security, or else I'm going to divorce you. And he's like, are you threatening me? And she's like, of course. So that's threat number one. Then eventually we see where he's talking to Gemma's dad, and Gemma's dad is telling him to be careful of Tracy because he sees Tracy give him a kiss before he goes to do his speech. And he's like, yeah, you need to be careful. And he's like, nigga, don't tell me what to do. I do what I want to do. And he's like, you wouldn't be here if it wasn't for me. And dude, I was like, I don't owe you shit. So they kind of get into it. So then we cut to Tracy gives her speech. He loves the speech. He ends up telling her that, I'll be on the roof later, in a little bit, meet me up there. She's like, okay. So eventually Kevin is looking around and he sees where Gemma and Jake are both gone. They're gone. So he's like, okay, let me look for them. So as he's looking for them, we cut to the scene where everything that's happening now is what happened in the very first episode, where they were kind of showing us what was going to happen. So Kevin's looking around for them and he ends up finding them in the stairwell and they're kissing. And of course he's like distraught. So he runs off. Gemma's about to chase him, but Jake grabs her arm like, no. So Kevin is distraught. He's running through the halls and everything. And then they eventually show Jake and Gemma holding hands like, cool, now we out in the open. And I'm like, what type of shit is this? Like, really? Eventually they show Kevin getting in a car and he's doing this thing with his face and this little walk like, I don't know if they about to try to make him gangster or street or, just that I don't give a shit attitude where he's about to be a mess. And I kind of feel like that's the direction they're about to go in. Just from the way that they was making him hold his face and his demeanor and his walk and everything was just totally different. You guys, then they show Darnell come in to Emmett's house. He got a beer. He offers Emmett beer. Emmett's like, no thanks. And eventually he just kind of snaps off. Oh, he tells Darnell, yeah, I went to go see my mom or whatever. And Darnell's like, she asked about me? He's like, nah, she ain't asked about you. So he's like, well, how's she doing? And Emmett ends up, kind of going off on him and telling him, leave, just leave. So he's kind of projecting. And when I tell y'all, this scene got me. So Emmett runs upstairs. Darnell can tell something is like really, really off because he's like, what's going on with you? What's going on with you? And he's not saying anything. Darnell runs upstairs behind him. He locks himself in the bathroom, Emmett, and Darnell's banging. And he's like, listen, I'm not going anywhere until you tell me what's going on. Let me know. And he's banging and banging. So eventually Emmett opens the door and he's just like, man, mom is sick. And he's like crying. And he's like, I can't lose my mom. And he hugs his dad. And in that moment, Darnell was being a dad. And I was like, oh, y'all, it got to me. I swear it got to me. Even talking about it is getting to me. So we don't have to leave it there. But it ends off with Keisha finally giving birth, and she caught her baby. She put it up to her chest, and it was such a sweet moment. Her moms were so happy. Then eventually the midwife came and took the baby and gave it to the adoptive mom, who's crying, and she's all, super happy as well. And then they show Keisha kind of turn around in the pool looking super sad. So I'm like, we know where this is headed. And this lady seems to be all about business, to where she's reading intentions and everything. So she's going to be strictly by this contract. And I think she's going to fight Keisha tooth and nail over this contract and this baby and this adoption. So I'm hoping that Keisha has some time. Maybe they gave her a few days to kind of rescind the offer of having my baby. I don't know how it works or if they even do that, but I really feel like Keisha's going to want that baby, and this lady is going to turn out to be something else. You guys, I almost forgot. So we go back to the party, and Duda's on the roof, and then they show him look at somebody. It was kind of strange. It looked like he looked over to the side, and so maybe two people was up there. I don't know, but someone shot him, of course. So we see Duda got shot. which is what we see again. We've already seen it in the first episode when they were showing what was going to happen. So now it's going to be this whole who shot Duda, but they also show him moving, so we know he's not going to die. So that's the end of that, and I will be back next Sunday with The Shy. I'll be doing it every week, and I'll also be back later tonight with Married to Medicine. So if you are not subscribed, please subscribe, and I will see you guys later tonight. Smooches.